Hello, everyone, and welcome to the iSpring Solutions webinar series, where every week we talk about e-learning trends, share iSpring tips and tricks, and cover clients' cases. My name is Paulina. I am the community manager at iSpring, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. And today we are going to delve deep into the audio and video production and actually talk about how to create better audio and video on a budget. And to help us with that, I have invited a great presenter, William Everhart, who is an e-learning authoring tools trainer at eLearning Uncovered. Hi, William. We are very happy to have you here with us. How are you?
I'm doing great, Paulina. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. So I am extremely excited for today's webinar because I'm dying to find out all those tips and tricks. And before we get started, I need to cover a couple of technical things. So first of all, guys, I have great news for anybody who needs for some reason to leave the session earlier and go to another meeting. It's being recorded. So guys, don't worry, you will receive a link to a replay sometime after the webinar. However, I would like to encourage you to stay till the very end because it's a great opportunity to address your questions directly to our today's presenter. And to do so, please submit them in the question box, which you will find on the right side of the GoToWebinar panel. So it should be somewhere at the bottom. And right now on the screen, you should see how it looks. All right, so no more boring stuff from me. And William, I'm ready to pass the mic over to you, as well as the presenter rights.
Perfect. There we go. Awesome. So we're going to cover a lot of material here today, and there's so much in this topic. When I was writing this course, I had to pare it down from like an 8-hour course all the way down to the time we have here, and it's just kind of evolved over the multiple times that I've presented this material, and it's just I think we finally got it fine-tuned. Just a little bit about me. As Paulina mentioned, I work for eLearning Uncovered. I'm a facilitator and writer for that company. So I basically train trainers. And throughout that process, I use a lot of audio and video. I've also worked for other companies with audio and video, including lynda.com and Pluralsight. So audio and video is a mainstay of what I do. And so I'm hoping to share with you some of the things that I have learned over the many years of working with audio and video. From a technical standpoint, I am an Adobe certified instructor in pretty much every application that Adobe produces. I'm also a certified technical trainer, which just means that I can take the geek speak and talk to normal people about it. So hopefully we can translate some of that terminology that you have heard in and around audio and video that's maybe made you a little standoffish about it and make it a little bit easier to understand. And then I guess at the core, you would call me a media specialist. I've worked in all different forms of media. I started out in print and design, worked for magazines, newspapers, printing companies, things like that. I transitioned over into web development for a number of years. And then for about the last 12 to 15 years, been working in audio and video. And actually, I still touch in all three of those areas of media on a regular basis. Well, what are we going to talk about in this particular webinar? Well, I don't think we can talk budget without talking about some equipment. I want to be able to make some comparisons between different pieces of equipment, primarily microphones and cameras. So our mainstay for audio and video, what are those different devices? Which one's better than the other? That sort of thing. I also want to talk to you about ways that you can improve the quality of the either audio or video you're getting from these devices. So it doesn't matter if you're using a less expensive microphone or a really expensive microphone. There are things that you need to know how to do to get the best out of that microphone. Then we'll move over into the recording environment. And a recording environment is a major impact on the quality of your audio and video. If you've got a lot of things going on in there, lighting problems, noise problems, things like that, that can really have a big impact on your recording. So for recording environments, I want to talk to you about what are some of the things you should look for in a recording environment. And then of course, what are some of the things you can do to that environment to improve your audio and video sessions? Those are the things we're going to look at today. But before we dive into that, I'd like to take a look at a few questions. I'd like to put up a couple of questions up here.
All right. So the poll is now up and running, and all of you guys can take a vote and choose whatever is true for you, for yourself. So far, I see the responses, and we have the most of them for I'm responsible for recording my own video and audio.
Right.
Yeah, so let me close the poll because it looks like almost everyone voted. Thank you very much, guys, and I will share the results really quickly so that everyone can see.
Yeah, look at that. Most all of you are responsible for your own, and that's probably why you're here, because you're the one that has to do those recordings and the editing of that. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay. What about that next question there?
All right, so what is your reason for attending this presentation? Maybe you're just starting out with audio video production and need advice. Maybe you have some experience already with audio and video, but just want to learn more to upgrade on whatever you already know. Or maybe you want to learn what to ask for from your in house audio and video production department. So please let us know, guys. What do you think? And let's wait for another 5 seconds, I would say, so that people can choose whatever option is true for them. And I will close the poll and share the results with everybody. So here we see that more than half of you guys already have some experience but want to learn more. So William,
That's awesome.
yeah, all
That's
right.
great.
So I will hide the results. So would you go with the third one?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that last one, and then we're going to get
Mm-hmm.
underway.
All right, so now we are interested, guys. What is the budget that you have for audio and video production equipment? And here is pure numbers, so that's an easy one. And the answers are actually pretty interesting. So we'll wait for another couple of moments for you guys to let us know what is your budget as well as everybody else. I will close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's see the results.
All right. So it looks like it's a pretty close race there, but it
Mhm.
looks like we're between the 100 and maybe about $1,500 range for the majority of you folks, which
Mhm.
is, that's about right. I can see that for most situations, especially like for an e-learning environment. So yeah, that clocks in about right where I thought it would be. That's awesome. On with the show here. So the first piece of equipment that we're going to make some comparisons on are microphones. To me, the microphone is the most important piece of equipment. So we just asked about your budget. Um, if you have money in your budget, whatever amount it is, I would say that you should allot a good portion of it to the microphone. Okay. So the microphone is a key piece. If you're just doing voiceover, then obviously it's important. You're not going to need a camera probably. But even if you're doing video, a good video camera is, yeah, that's pretty important, but you can actually sacrifice a higher priced camera. You can maybe drop down a notch to get a better quality microphone. People will forgive less than perfect video before they will forgive less than perfect audio. So there's nothing any worse than looking at a presentation, no matter what kind of presentation it is, and the audio is just distracting. And it is very distracting no matter who you are and no matter what the content is. So invest in a good microphone. Okay. Well, what kind of microphones do you have to choose from? Well, there's a lot of them to choose from. We'll start here. I don't want to say it's the bottom of the batch, but something that probably a lot of you already have, and that's a headset. So headsets are great. They're typically a USB headset, so they'll plug directly into your computer. Some of them use the standard little 3.5 millimeter jack, and once again, it'll just plug directly into your computer. And so I really like headsets because of their ease of use. They give a really consistent sound because the microphone itself is always positioned the same distance from your face. It's usually in the same position, so it's really good if you have to turn your head. Now, the microphone that you're listening to me on, I'll talk about a little later, but I want you to take a listen at this. So I'm talking at the microphone the way I'd normally address it, but what if I look away? So I'm looking away right now, and you probably can tell a difference in the voice than when I'm back over here and I'm actually looking at my screen. You see, with a headset, you won't get that sort of thing. There is no change in the voice. So you get a nice consistent sound. Probably the biggest um, pro for a headset is that it's great in an open office environment. You don't have a studio or a dedicated space that's isolated for your audio recording. A headset might be a great choice for you because it is not as sensitive to the background noises as some of the other microphones we're going to take a look at. Okay. Next, we have our studio mics, and there's a wide variety of studio mics that come in every shape and size and different types of components in here. The microphone you're listening to me on is a studio mic. It is what we call a dynamic microphone, and that's just one of the many types. But like I said, there's a wide variety to choose from. There's probably more studio microphones out there in the world than any other actually in use. And that means you get a lot of good community support. They have a great sound quality, and that's because they're very sound sensitive. And it's not that they're just sensitive to the volume level of the noise. So they can pick up, very small noises like a computer fan and things like that. But they're also very sensitive to the frequency range. So you get a wider range of more natural sound from studio microphones. However, because they're so sound sensitive, these microphones are best used in an actual studio, or at the very least, a room that has been treated for sound, what we call acoustically treated. And we're going to talk about how to acoustically treat your room. Okay. Next up, we have what we call a shotgun microphone. This microphone is very much like the studio microphone, except whereas the studio microphone is listening all around in all directions, the shotgun microphone listens in only one direction. It's what we call a focused pickup pattern. It listens to a very small area, and everything else it tries to ignore. They have great sound quality, just like the studio mics. And the other benefit with a shotgun microphone is that it can record at a distance. So most of the microphones that we have talked about so far, and the ones we will talk about here in just a moment, they all have to be within inches of the speaker. This microphone can actually be maybe 2 or 3 feet away from your speaker. Now, these microphones are great in open environments, like if you're on location, maybe you have to record a safety video and you're doing this out in the um, maybe out on the industrial floor or something like that, big, large open space. Shotgun microphone might be great for that. But you can also use these outdoors or indoors. You can put them in the studio. I know a lot of voiceover talent like to use these in their studio just because they don't like to have a microphone so close to them. They'd rather have it further away. Now, finally, we have a lavalier microphone. These are the small little miniature microphones that you pin to the speaker's shirt. Um, these things are great because because they're so close, they tend to capture just the person speaking, not the environment. I mean, it can, if there's a loud noise out there, it certainly will, but they tend to really just capture whoever is speaking. They're great for that. Um, they allow whoever is speaking, your talent, as I like to say, to move around. That's why you'll see these used at a lot of the conferences where you have a speaker up on stage and they're walking around. They are not tied to the podium if they have a lavalier mic. These also have a great sound quality. Um, these microphones tend to be a little more expensive. There are some low-cost versions, but once we get up into um, say a wireless version of the lavalier mic, and then we have to start getting smaller and smaller microphones, our prices tend to go up on these. These, like I said, are great for on location shots. So once again, if you are maybe doing a safety video out on an industrial floor, these microphones are great, especially the wireless ones because there's no wires to get tangled up and things like that. But anywhere your talent has to move a lot. So those are the various microphones. What about the other side of that? The microphones are just like the ears for your audio solution. They're just listening. They don't capture anything. How do you record or capture that audio? Well, a computer is an obvious choice, especially if you're doing voiceover work for your e-learning. So things like the headset, even um, the shotgun, and well, all of the mics actually, all of them can be plugged into a computer. Some of them will require an additional interface, but a lot of them, like the headset and the studio microphone, they have direct to USB versions of those. So they'll just plug directly into your computer. As far as the software, variety of software out there for audio recording on a computer. Some people use Camtasia because they're recording their screen at the same time. Some people use something like Audacity. There's just a load of applications out there for that. Now, if you're wanting to get, detached from the computer, maybe you want to, have a video of yourself. Um, you might want to use the lavalier. Some lavaliers are wireless, and so they would connect maybe into your camera. But what if you didn't have that? What if you had a wired lavalier? Your smartphone is a great choice for this. As you can see, this is a little lavalier mic plugged directly into a smartphone. You can use your pretty much all of the smartphones, the iOS devices and the Android devices have a built-in voice memo application. I use mine all the time for this because I have a less expensive lavalier mic and I could just plug it into my smartphone and basically I have a wireless microphone system right there. You can also record directly into your camera. So a lot of the cameras we'll take a look at will actually have a microphone input on them. So cameras too, especially things like, well, like your smartphone and your video camera here, they do have microphones in them, but they're not a very good quality microphone. They're not really built for this, for getting good audio. You really need a good microphone for that. We'll talk about cameras in a bit, but that's definitely one of the things you want to look for is a microphone input. Finally, if you really want to get the most out of your audio recordings, a digital recorder is the thing that you want. A digital recorder does one thing. It captures sound or from a microphone, or in this case, multiple microphones. So let's say you have a scenario where you have multiple speakers and you want each one to have their own microphone. You're most likely going to need some sort of digital recorder to have a place to record all of that audio. And so there's a variety of these. The Zoom is one of the more popular brands, but it's only one of them. This particular one, the H4n Pro, has 4 different inputs for microphones. So I can record 4 different microphones at once. The other great thing about this is that it also gives me some control over things like the microphone gain, which is kind of like a turbocharger for your microphone. It makes it a little more sound sensitive. So I can do things like that and control some of the other features right here inside of the digital recorder that I can't really do on some of these other devices. So we've talked about microphones and we've talked about how to capture the sound. How do you get that digital file? Okay. Now let's talk about some of the audio accessories that I think you would benefit from having. These will help you get better sound, no matter what microphone you're using. Okay. So the first one is a mic stand and a shock mount. These are going to be used obviously for the studio microphones and even the shotgun microphones. The headset and the lavalier, you obviously don't need these. But if you're going to use either of the other two, you definitely want a mic stand. And the big thing here with a microphone stand or a mic stand is that it gets that microphone closer to you. I'm using a microphone stand here that's attached to my desk, and it has kind of like a what we call a scissor arm type of um, apparatus here. So very similar to like one of those desk lamps that you can kind of move around. It has that arm that kind of pivots around. So it's basically the same thing, except it's a little more robust to hold a microphone. And what that does is allow me to get the microphone closer to my voice, closer to me. Plus, lets me get it out of the way when I need to. Now, the shock mount You'll see that here in this photograph. You can see the mic over here in the photograph, the silver thing. It's hung upside down, so suspended upside down. And that little contraption, that cage that it's in, that is the shock mount. And what it is there is a couple of uh, stretchy, like rubber bands or bungee cords there that are kind of interwoven around that cage. So that microphone is being suspended by that little rubber band. And what this does is, if I'm bumping my table, if I bump my desk, even just typing on my keyboard, those vibrations will travel up the microphone stand and vibrate the microphone itself. With a shock mount, it prevents that. It kind of nullifies those vibrations. Okay, so if you're going to use one of these mics, definitely want to get these items. Next is a pop filter. Now the pop filter here in this photograph is down towards the center of the screen, and there at the bottom there's a little oval down there. It's a black ring, and it has a like a piece of foam in the inside of it. What this does is it prevents a popping sound from your voice. So it's a class participation time. Everyone take your hand, put it in front of your mouth, just a couple inches from your mouth. And then I want you to repeat the nursery rhyme there. Peter Piper picked a pail of peppers. Okay. So do you feel the little puffs of air? So that's what this pop filter does. Those little puffs of air, when they hit the microphone, they they excite the microphone, if you will, or make a popping or booming sound. And so what this pop filter does, it's really it can either be a piece of foam or sometimes it's a piece of like sheer hosiery. And what it does is allow your voice to travel straight through it, but then that little puff of air, it gets diverted. So the foam or the hosiery itself kind of diverts that air away from the microphone. So there's less of that popping sound. This pop filter obviously will go between you and the microphone, so it's going to be really close to you. Okay, they're an inexpensive piece, a couple like $10. Really inexpensive way to really boost your sound quality. Finally, we have an acoustic shield or sound blanket. Now, in this photograph, once again, there is a contraption that's kind of in the lower right-hand corner. There's a foam, kind of a wavy foam in the center of it, and then there's a metal cage that wraps around the outside of it. That's an acoustic shield. And this photograph is not completely accurate. Um, the microphone itself would actually be down and inside of that acoustic shield, but it would obviously, for this photograph, they moved it out so you could actually see the microphone. But normally, this thing, it just kind of wraps around the microphone and prevents um, reverberation, noises from bouncing around the room actually hitting the microphone. So it's trying to focus this microphone. It's like blinders on a horse. It's preventing the microphone from seeing everything else or listening to everything else that's around it and only listening to what's there in the front. Okay. And you may not have room for an acoustic shield, especially if you're going to be on camera. You don't want to have this big thing here in front of you because you're going to be like hiding behind that acoustic shield. So what you may want to do is like what I have done here is use a sound blanket. And what I'm going to do, if I can, all right, great. So everyone can see me here. Now, what you see behind me, that's a sound blanket. They come in different colors. Blue and black are the most common ones, but it's just a big, heavy blanket that I drape over the walls here in my studio. Now, the reason I use sound blankets is because they're easily removable, because this is my office as well. So sound blankets, they work great. You don't have to you don't have to purchase professional sound blankets. These are actually moving blankets. I picked these up for about $10 a piece. They're great.
I heard one tip
Yep.
that when you really want to go low on a budget, you can do the audio recording in a closet surrounded by your clothes so that it
Yes.
can catch the extra sounds that you don't need.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Your closet is one of the best rooms in your house to go and actually do some audio recording. We always hear that people sing in the bathroom because of the sound that's in there. I guess it bounces around, but actually, a closet is your best bet because you're right. All of the clothes, all the soft material in there, just keeps your voice from bouncing around, and it gets it very crisp and very precise.
Mm-hmm. And actually, there is a question from Eric.
Sure.
So the blanket, should it be only behind or everywhere in the room?
Yeah, with the webcam, you can only see it behind me. I put it everywhere on all four sides. And if I can, I actually make a little tent out of it. So I have something over me as well. So all all sides, basically a complete enclosure if I can. Now you can't do that in all situations. So just cover up the hard surfaces that you can. In my case, I do have some foam inserts on one wall, but um, say the wall to my left and the wall in front of me, but the other walls I use these blankets because I need to use those walls for other things. Like I said, it is my office after
Mm-hmm. And we also had one question previously.
all.
Are you planning to um, give a little bit more info on the brands that you would recommend?
I can, yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
And we jumped ahead there. The last piece of equipment that you're going to need, and you saw me in my webcam, the set of headsets. I cannot, or headphones. I cannot stress this enough. Whether they have a microphone or not, they generally don't. You want a set of what they call monitoring headsets or headphones. Monitoring, as in your computer monitor, because you are going to monitor your sound. Um, if you have the latest, Apple iBuds, things like that, whatever those things are, those are great. They're expensive, they're really great quality, and they're great for listening to music. They're not so great for listening for problems in your audio. The same with another brand here, the Dr. Dre Beats, those Beats headphones. Those things are absolutely incredible for listening to music because that's what they were designed to do. They're not so good for listening for problems in your audio. So get you a good set of headphones, and I'll talk about a couple of brands when we get to that in here. I'll even talk about the ones that I'm wearing. So now that we know about all the equipment, what are some of the things that we can just do to improve our sound quality? And the first thing, as I mentioned before, just invest in a good microphone. Um, Especially things like studio mics. You will find studio mics as cheap as say $10 or $20. Trust me, you are going to get a $10 or $20 sound out of them. Don't bother. Okay. You'll spend more money, more time, more effort trying to clean up that audio than you would if you just went ahead and spent, say, $150 or $200 on a microphone. Think about this. It's not a one-time use. You're investing in a piece of equipment that you're going to use over and over again. Okay. So buy something that is going to give you a good quality sound that's made of good quality components. It's going to last you a lifetime. Okay. Next, adjusting your mic position and gain. So just as I mentioned earlier with the microphone stand, you're trying to get that microphone closer to you, okay? The exception to this rule will be the shotgun microphone, but for all of the other mics, the best way for you to tell if the microphone is close to you is to hold up your hand, okay? And once again, I'm just gonna pop my camera on here for just a moment. So if you hold up your hand and spread your fingers apart, this distance from here to here, that is how close you need to be your mic. Okay. So what I generally do is I just do the hang loose symbol here or whatever it is, or take your hand and I just put it to the corner of my mouth. And then right here is the tip of my microphone. So this is how close I really need to be to my microphone. If I'm way over here, then you're going to tell a difference. Oops. And I just hit my microphone. So use your hand as that measuring device. Now, what if you're using a headset and that little microphone is kind of swinging and it's right around here? Instead of spreading your hand apart, put your thumb in like this and just use the palm of your hand. That distance right there, that's where the microphone needs to be. Okay? All right. So get that mic position where it needs to be. Now, the shotgun microphone, once again, that can get a little further away. We're talking 18 inches, maybe 2 feet, maybe even as far as 3 feet away. Okay? But these other microphones, I, use your hand as a measuring tool. Now, the gain is like the turbo boost for your microphone. Some microphones will have a dial on them, an adjustment for gain. Other times you'll have to use the software for this, but you want to keep the gain as low as possible. The more gain you have, the more sensitive that microphone is going to get. So it's going to get sensitive to background noises, the fan on your computer whistling away or whirring away, whatever it might be. The gain will also introduce an artificial or a machine noise. It's like a hum or a buzz, and it'll amplify that. And that's also why you don't want to purchase cheaper microphones. Those $10, $20 microphones, they're made of inferior electronics inside of them. Yes, they work, but they also have a lot of background noise that is artificially generated by those less expensive electronics in them. They're not properly shielded. And so when you turn up the gain, you're just amplifying all of that electronic noise. So get the mic close to you, pull that gain down.
We also got a comment to think of gain as sensitivity and not volume. And this is a common mistake people that are new to audio will make. This is the comment from Antonio.
Yes, yes, that is absolutely correct. So volume and gain are two completely different things. Gain is definitely the sensitivity. As I say, I like to think of it as kind of like a turbo booster for the microphone. It's not
Hmm.
boosting the volume, that's the effect that you get from it, but you have a lot of adverse effects that come along with it. All right. Well, next we have what I call recording room tone. And this is no matter what situation, whether you're in, if you're shooting video, if you're just doing voiceover work, I always record my talent, whoever's going to be doing the speaking in the room, just being there, breathing, not speaking. Okay. For me, in my production workflow, I actually record about 20 to 30 seconds of this, and I keep that as a separate sound file. But that is my method. I use it to fill in gaps and things like that. But even if I'm just doing shorter voice recordings, maybe voiceover work for my e-learning, what I will do is I'll press the record button and then I'm quiet for just a few seconds. About 5, 6 seconds is really all I need. And I do that at every recording. So at the beginning and the end of every one of my voice recordings, I have about 5 to 6 seconds of nothing but just whatever noise is in the room. Okay. And then I can use that as a baseline for my noise reduction filters. So a lot of the software that is out there for audio, you can remove background noise. And what you'll do is you can select the small 5 to 6 seconds worth and say, okay, this area should be quiet, but I know there's a little bit of room noise in there. So use that as a template and find those noises throughout the rest of my audio and remove that. Okay. So room tone. And then when you get it all cleaned up, you've run the filter, you could just trim off those few seconds of, room tone. You don't need it after that. So hopefully that gives you a little better understanding of audio. Audio is a big component here. Like I said, people will forgive poor video faster than they will poor audio. So I really encourage you to focus more of your attention on your audio production. Now, let's take a look at cameras real quick. And I know we're coming close here on time, but I think we're about right. Cameras. Cameras are also another major piece here for your video. You have webcams, which is what you saw me using here. If that's all you have, well, that's better than nothing. Webcams, you are tied to a computer, so they can't record on their own, so you have to use a computer to record with. They also maybe aren't the best video quality. They're good, don't get me wrong, but I think there are some better choices for you. A point and shoot camera. Some of you may not even know what this is. These came out before we had cell phones that had such great cameras in them, and they were about the size of a cell phone, maybe a little thicker. So you may have one of these just sitting around. Now, they were intended to take photographs, but a lot of them, especially the later models, actually had video capabilities on them. And because these things have really nice lenses in them, this could be a choice for you, especially if you have one just sitting around that's not being used. Take a look. And then, of course, You have your smartphone. Everybody's got one. And if your smartphone was built within the last, say, 5 or 6 years, you have a video production device right there in your pocket. I like using the smartphones. I don't use the one that I have for day-to-day use, but like most of us, every couple of years we upgrade our smartphones. Maybe part of our package deal with our cell phone provider. Well, what happens to that old cell phone? Do you trade it in? Maybe get, 40 or $50 off of your next one. I don't know. Me, I always keep them. I've already bought it, so I keep it. And so what I like to do is I like to use those old smartphones that aren't being used for anything else as a recording device. And in fact, I may have a primary camera, and then I'll use my smartphone or multiple smartphones for recording B-roll, record a different angle of the same presentation. And then I intersperse those with my presentation. Smartphones, great choice for video production. And if it's all you have, it's a great way to get started. However, if you do have a budget for a camera, I'm going to recommend that you go for a camcorder or a video camera. These devices are purpose built for recording video. Unlike the point and shoot, the webcam and the smartphones and the next camera we're going to look at, they were all built for another purpose. Camcorders were built for recording video. So if you had to make a purchase here, that's what I would do. You're going to get all the features you need, including things like microphone inputs, recording to digital media, different lens filters that are already built in to these things, like if you needed it for night recording, or even there's a filter for if you go out in the day, there's like a polarizing lens that's it's already built in for that. So uh, it's a all-in-one shop right there. Now, the last camera we're going to talk about here is a DSLR. And the reason I mention this is because it's becoming very, very popular with various content creators. A lot of YouTube creators are using either DSLRs or mirrorless cameras, which are very similar. These cameras are great, don't get me wrong, but they can be very expensive, and they can be a lot more to, they have a higher learning curve in order to get a really good quality video out of them. I use both camcorders and DSLRs in my production workflow just because I have experience with DSLRs as a photographer, so I know how my camera works and I know how to manipulate it to get really good video out of them. But suffice it to say, if you have one of these already, maybe it's something you can use and save a little bit of money in the camera area. So what about some video accessories? So we've talked about the cameras. What are some of the things that can help you to get better video? Well, a tripod or some sort of mount to steady the camera is obviously one of the first pieces you want to purchase. Some of your camcorders and your DSLRs, and even the newer smartphones, have image stabilization, but it only goes so far. You really want to mount the camera on something so you get a nice steady shot. Lighting kits. There's no such thing as too much light. Lighting kits can be purchased for around the $100 to $150 range for an inexpensive one, up to several $1,000s for a really nice, like an LED light kit. And so you can find what suits your needs. But how many lights do you need? That's going to depend on your setup. I would say I would start with at least a 2-light kit. These come in these, they kind of look like a little umbrella on them, and that helps to diffuse the light. And you can see the one on the right, the diffuser has actually been taken off of it. The one on the left, you can see it's kind of covered in this white screen. That's the diffuser. It softens the light, but you can remove those if you needed a little bit harsher light. A lot of them, the inexpensive ones, are going to be the CFLs, the little curly fluorescent tubes. They work great, but you want to be careful of those. Some of them, they get a little, they go out of color range. As they get older, they have to be replaced. Even though the light still works, the color that the light gives off is a little odd, and so it can confuse the camera. It can cause some issues there. But a good lighting kit is always a great choice, no matter what your scenario is. In addition to lighting, think about a light modifier. And this can be something as simple as a piece of foam core. So I use foam core a lot, and I like to use it because I can buy it in huge sheets. I can buy it, say, in a 4x8 sheet, and sometimes I have a supplier where I can get even larger than that. But what these light modifiers do is that you can use them to reflect light where there is no light. So if I have light coming in from a window, say to the right of my subject, but I have no light on the other side, I can use one of these light modifiers or reflectors to bounce light and balance it out so that the person has lighting on both sides of their face. They come in different colors there, the white, silver, and gold. The black one, of course, acts like a shade. It's blocking some light because sometimes you maybe have a spotlight or something that's a little too harsh that you can't control. You can use that to block it out. And then you also have the one that's in the very front, which is sheer. It lets some of the light through, but not all of it. So it's a diffuser. Okay. These can be purchased relatively inexpensively. You can buy them one at a time, or you can buy a whole set. Memory cards. If you're using a digital recorder for your voice, it's going to take a memory card. If you're using um, a video camera or a DSLR or even one of the point and shoots, they all are going to require video cards or memory cards. You want to get the fastest memory card you can get. It's not about the size, how much data it can hold. Yeah, that's kind of important, but it's a little more important to look at the number here. You can see on this Extreme Pro, it says 95 megabytes per second there, 95 MB/s. You're looking for those types of numbers or higher. You're looking for the highest speed, the fastest speed that you can get on these. Okay, and have plenty of them. I don't like to erase my memory cards until a project is completed because that is my backup for my original recording. Okay. So now that we talked about the accessories, what are some of the things that you can do to improve your videos? Well, as I said before, more light. There's no such thing as too much light. The biggest problem I see with most videos is the fact that there's not enough light, and the camera is having to work harder. Just like we talked about, the microphones have a gain. Okay, video cameras, well, all cameras, they have a similar control. That is basically a gain. It makes the sensor, the light sensor inside the camera, more sensitive, and at the same time, it introduces an artificial, what we call a noise. So makes it look a little grainy. So more light will solve that problem. The camera doesn't have to work so hard. It can turn its gain down. Frame your shot. You notice that when I had my webcam on, it's very, very sparse in my environment here. It doesn't have to be that sparse, but definitely take a look at what is behind your subject. If it's really cluttered, are there shiny things that are going to reflect light into the camera? Things that are going to be distracting to your audience. You want to go ahead and take care of that before you turn the camera on. Okay, so frame it up, make sure there's nothing too distracting in the shot. And then this one is going to be the hardest one for you to accept, and that is to go manual on the camera. You say, well, William, I just spent $5,000 on this video camera, and there's an auto mode on it, and that camera, it's got to be smarter than me because I spent so much money on it. No, it's not. That auto mode is just to kind of help you get started. If you're having to do, that's really more for consumers who are, oh, I'm out at the park and my children are doing something fun. Let me quickly record this. That's what that's for. When you have the time to record something and you can set it up, go manual. That way you can control everything that the camera is doing. Okay, trust me on this. Learn how to use your camera. Learn those settings. If you're using a smartphone, you say, well, my smartphone doesn't have that. Yes, there are apps for that. There are professional photography and video apps for your smartphones for both Android and iOS, and they will let you go manual on that camera and unlock some extra settings for your camera. Okay. All righty. Well, this is the part where I think everybody's been looking for. There's so many options out here. How do I decide what I'm going to buy? Well, there's three things here to consider. What are you recording? Okay. Am I recording voiceover? Am I recording, is this going to be music? What is it going to be? That's going to help you decide on equipment choices. Where am I recording? Do I have a dedicated space? Is it acoustically treated? Do I have the proper lighting in there? Okay. And then, of course, what's my budget? I'm not Rockefeller. I don't have a lot of money to throw at this, but this is what I do have. So these three questions here will help you kind of define what it is you should buy. Okay. All right. Well, William, what would you buy? All right. Well, starting off with, I think that a lavalier mic is a great choice because it's kind of a universal microphone. Okay. Deity makes an inexpensive microphone. It's about $50 called the VLab. I own the predecessor to this and I absolutely love it. It is a great microphone for just $50. Um, Plugs directly into my camera and my cell phone, and it works great. So check them out, Deity. If you wanted to step up your game and get a studio mic, I recommend the Podcaster by Rode. I'm actually using this microphone's big brother called the Procaster. But the Podcaster, I recommend for those of you who are getting started into this. It is a USB connection, so that you don't need any other equipment. You can plug this directly into your computer and start recording. It does have some features that I think you will enjoy. This is an end address microphone, so it's like more like a like you would see in a radio station where people talk into the very tip of it, the top end of it there, not the side. Okay. As far as the headsets go, the Audio Technica ATH series are absolutely amazing. I think they go down to like a M20X and all the way up to like an M90. Anywhere in between there is a great one. I actually use these, the ATH M50s. They are amazing. When I put those on, an elephant, a charging elephant can sneak up behind me. I can't hear the outside world with these things on. So it really allows me to focus on my recordings. And then finally, for a video camera, like I said, purchase a video camera. The Canon Vixia line are a great consumer-based camera. The HF R800, I think, is like their entry-level product, is around $250. But you can go up this line into a prosumer camera, but still stay below $1,500. Okay, and get all the features that you need. I wanted to go ahead and get your questions in, and then I'm going to point you to where you can see uh, all of this information and more. I got a link for you for all that.
All right, awesome, perfect. Thanks a lot for sharing these tips. And actually, this is something that we can go ahead and use right after we get off of this webinar, which is just perfect. And yes, we do not have much time, but let's get down to the questions.
Oops.
So first of all, any tips on getting most out of your voice?
Oh yes, absolutely. So if you're the voice talent, the biggest thing here is to avoid caffeine and dairy. On the days that I'm doing recordings, no caffeine, no dairy. That does affect your voice, and it also affects how long you can carry your voice. The other tip I'd have for you is stand. Don't sit while you're doing a recording. I'm standing right now. I have a stand-up desk, and that's the way I prefer to work, but it definitely does allow your diaphragm to move more freely, and you can actually breathe and talk at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And chroma key, green, blue, white, black. Which background would be best?
There is no best there. It's completely up to you. The difference there is, what is the subject wearing? So that's why a lot of times we'll use the blue or the green because it's highly unlikely that your talent will be wearing an electric green or blue. Um, However, the big thing there is setting up the proper lighting. You have to light the green screen or blue screen separately from the talent. Another thing there, you have to get your talent far enough away from that blue or green screen. I'd say 4 or 6 feet away from that screen.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thanks a lot. And what would be the perfect distance to the lavalier mic?
Once again, I would use that same measure, the tip of your pinky to the tip of your thumb. If you just put that on the corner of your mouth and then point straight down at your chest, right there, that is going to be perfect. Um, it's about the middle of your uh, breastbone there. It's about
Mm-hmm.
right about there. Hmm.
hmm And we have a lot of questions about what recommendations would you give in regards to the best software for video and audio editing?
Okay, so depends on your level. If you wanted to get inexpensive, Audacity is great for audio recording. Um, Video recording, I know the Apple devices come with their own software for that. That's pretty good. For me personally, I use professional software. It's not terribly expensive anymore, and that is the Adobe Premiere and Adobe, um, all of the Adobe products. I've been using it for years, and like I said, with a subscription now, you can get them for just a few dollars a month.
hmm Yeah, hope that helps, guys. And Carola asks, one of our authors recorded using a very good mic, but while in the basement of her house. The sound was terrible. Could the location of the recording have something to do with it?
Absolutely. There's so many factors here. Um, the location. Was it treated for sound? Did she have like blankets up in the room? Um, you know, uh, how was the microphone connected to the computer or the recording device? There are so many things that are a factor here in that. So that was kind of a um, difficult one to answer without knowing some more details.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for covering that. And what headset slash mic combo brand slash model do you suggest?
Yeah, I always get that.
Mhm.
Honestly, if you're on a budget, the gamers headsets, and there's a whole variety of those that are actually really pretty good. So they're sub $100 and they work pretty good for the recording process. If you wanted to spend a little more money, the Audio Technica makes some great ones, and there's a couple other ones, but now we're looking at around the $300 to $350 range.
Okay. And where are cameras, very specific question, where are cameras like Canon XA50 used for? I got one.
I'm not exactly familiar with that particular one, but I would think that anywhere, I mean, you could use it just about anywhere. It kind of depends on, um, what it is you're trying to do. You can, like I said, we could use a smartphone and film. You could film a major motion picture with it if you know what you're doing. So it's not so much the equipment. Yes, the equipment will make your life a little easier or a little more difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just you got to get creative with what you've got.
Right. I am completely with you on that point. And Jean is saying, what about virtual backgrounds?
Honestly, I don't care for them. I would prefer to use a natural background. So I try to find a place in an office that where I can, film that has a good background. If not, I will drape a background. One of the other things that you can look for, just like a lighting kit, there's also a background kits that you can get, and they would come with like a white, a black, a green cloth that you can drape. I would rather see a plain white or black background than one of these virtual ones. To me, they look fake.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing your opinion. And let's cover the very last question. It's from Sandy. Are single on camera LED ring type lights worth it for a DSLR for video?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The ring lights are great. They do have a specialized look. So usually those are for what we call the talking head types of videos. So the video itself, you're very close up on the talent, and you're really just seeing maybe down to their neck. But they do create a really nice look and the camera's kind of sitting in the middle, so you're getting a nice balanced look all the way around the person. I would go with a bigger ring. Some of those rings are getting up to about 18 to 20 inches now. So the larger that ring, the little bit more softer of a look that you can get with them. But yeah, they're a great choice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I think these were all the questions that we had, and I would like to thank our attendees for being so active and actually sharing some of the tips in the comments. Thank you very much, guys, for doing that. And of course, William, thanks to you for providing us with a little bit of your expertise so that we can be more professional on the video and audio production.
Well, it has been my pleasure.
And I would like to wish everyone a wonderful day. And I guess I will see you guys at the next webinar. Bye, everybody. Bye, William.
Bye bye, everyone.